Hey there, I'm a fellow barbecue enthusiast. Mike Baker here, Baker's Barbecue. Hey, today we're gonna make some beef tallow out of the trimmings from the last brisket that I cooked. Beef tallow is wonderful. I use it when I'm finishing out my briskets right before I wrap them in butcher paper. I also take beef tallow, put it on my steaks after I get done grilling them. You can season the beef tallow when you want to do that. It's just got tons of different uses, and it has a very high smoke point, which allows you to use it under high heat conditions without it going rancid and going bad. So it's a very versatile product, something you can make out of your trimmings after you get done making your brisket, trimming your brisket at home. And so it's just wonderful to be able to take those trimmings and put them to good use. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that my Baker's Barbecue competition barbecue rub is now out on the market, and it is available through local retailers in southeast Missouri and in western Missouri, and also available on my website at bakersbbq.net. That's bakersbbq.net. So be sure and go there and grab you a bottle of Baker's Barbecue competition rub and kick up that next barbecue. So let's get started making this beef tallow. I'm going to bring you a little bit closer and show you the steps from here. So let's get started. All right, so the process of making beef tallow is really not that complicated. The first step is I'll kind of take you through the steps up front, and then we'll kind of go through them as we go through the cooking process. But the first thing you're going to do is take all your trimmings. As you can see here, I've got a bunch of brisket trimmings from the last time I cooked a brisket, and you're going to cut those up in small pieces and put them into your pan that you're going to be using to render down the tallow. And then once you get that put in there and you put it on your stove, then you're going to add a little bit of water to that to help it get started through the process to where it won't burn early on as it's starting to do the rendering process. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you a little bit closer, kind of show you how I cut up the pieces of the trimmed brisket to put into here. All right, so making sure you got plenty of room to work. Give yourself a bit of room to chopping block. You're just going to cut it up in small pieces so that it will render good. I take them in there probably, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch wide, something like that. Turn them sideways, just kind of chunk them. Just like that right there. And just take them, throw them over into your pan. You're also going to have some pieces in here that'll be maybe a little bit meaty as well from when you did the brisket, and that's fine. Just trim those up as well. There's a lot of fat, excuse me, a lot of fat that's in these trim sections of meat, and that will actually all render out. And the crazy thing is, when you get done with this in the end and you've got your rendered beef tallow, it almost creates the residue that's left over in the pan from cooking, which is going to be these bits and pieces we're cutting up here. They almost turn into like little pieces of pork rind, almost like pork crackling. Some people like to eat that. There's been a few times I've eaten it. It tastes pretty good. Probably going to be an acquired taste. It's pretty crunchy. It's a little bit dry because it's already had a lot of all the fat cooked out of it. But it's some really good stuff, and it's something that you can certainly consider at least trying when you get done making this. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to continue cutting up all the brisket trimmings and getting it over into the pan. And then from there, I'm going to take you over to the stove and I'm going to show you the rendering process. And then at the end, when we get it all said and done, I'll show you how I strain it and how I get it put into the final mason jar for storing away. All right, as you can see now, we have all the trimmings. Hopefully you can see this pretty good. All the trimmings are trimmed up in here. And the next step I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour in a cup of water. A cup of water is what you need. That water is going to help as it starts in the rendering process early. It's going to almost steam for a little while. And you'll see, because I'm going to show you here on the stove shortly as we start that rendering process. But it'll actually steam for a little bit. And then eventually the water will dissipate and it's going to turn into, it's going to be rendering the oil out of the fat and out of the meat. So let's go ahead and pour in our cup of water. I just kind of mix it all, make sure it's all poured evenly around. Okay, and then from there, I'm going to get us moved over to the stove and we'll start the rendering process on the beef tallow. Okay, so now we have our brisket trimmings. We got them over here in our pan. We got our cup of water in here with them. And we're going to wait. Now I've got it on high heat, and I want the heat to come up to where it's going to start, you'll see it start steaming here in a little bit, and we'll come back to that shortly. Okay, so I'm just a few minutes into this, but I'm going to go ahead and start stirring it a little bit just to kind of see what it's looking like. I don't want it to burn on the bottom. You definitely don't want it to burn, because if it burns, then that's going to scorch your beef tallow, and that's not going to be good. And while that's doing that, I was just going to show you as well. Here are my 2 mason jars. Of course, I got my Baker's Barbecue logo sticker on there. This here is the tool that you buy that you get with mason jars, that you actually, it fits in the lip of the mason jar. I'll show you later, and it's good for canning. What I do is take that, sit it down in there, put a coffee filter, and that's what I'm going to use after a while as we filter this tallow out, as we get all the solids out of it and we start purifying it. So it's starting to render down pretty good. You just want to continue stirring it. Just keeping an eye on it. As I can already see, the meat's starting to cook already. And that's what you're going to have when it's all said and done. Like I said, this meat's going to turn into almost like a pork rind or a pork crackling. So just kind of keep stirring that around. Right now it's pretty good, so I just give it a little bit of a stir. There's still plenty of moisture and water in there. Just stir it a little bit and stop, and just keep doing that as it slowly comes up to where the beef tallow starts rendering out of the brisket trimming. So this has been going probably about 15 minutes to kind of give you an idea what it looks like after 15 minutes. Really no science to it. Yours may do a little different depending on your stove. But as you can see, just continue to take a good look at it occasionally. Stir it every once in a while. There's still quite a bit of moisture in there, and it's continuing to work its way out of there through steam. So as you can see now, it's really rendering down. See that? All the meat obviously is cooked. There's still, the fat has still got some good fat content to it. I'm going to continue cooking it down slowly. All right, so we're about 45 minutes into it. So see I keep giving you a time, it's kind of estimate. I think it's about right. I've kind of lost track of time, but about 45 minutes, I think. But as you can see, it's really rendered down. I mean, now the meat's basically floating in all the oil that's rendered off of this, all the beef tallow. So I'm just continuing to stir it at a real low temperature, trying to make sure that the solid pieces don't burn. You don't want to give it a scorched flavor. But I'm trying to get as much of the fat rendered as I can. Looks like we got a pretty good, we're gonna have a pretty good amount of fat out of this, which is gonna be great. I'm not sure if we can get 2 full mason jars, but hopefully we can. I think we'll for sure get 1. All right, we're right up at the right close to the 1 hour mark. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off, and I'm gonna call it. You can call yours however you want to. I mean, it's no exact time frame on this thing because everybody's stove's a little different. But as you can see, looking really good. I mean, there's tons of tallow in there. Of course, it's hot. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to strain all this this meat out of here. Take it up, strain it out, and just put it over here on my plate that's got some paper towels on it. So as you can see here, we got some good tallow. I hope you can see that. Still got all the, it still needs to be strained obviously, but man, that's some nice looking tallow. I can't wait to get this filtered out. All right, so I've let this cool off for about 15-20 minutes, something like that. I've got my canning drainer. I guess I don't know what you would call that. It comes with canning supplies. I've got my mason jar. So I'm just going to put this down in here, and I'm going to put my filter inside of that right there. Kind of push that down just a little bit. And then from there, I'm just going to take my ladle. Hopefully I didn't block you guys when I was doing that. And I'm just going to scoop in here. Scoop some out, and I'm just going to take it over here and just let it go right into it just like that. And just let it filter down through there. It may take it just a little bit to filter through. You don't want too much in there at a time, because if you do, it's liable to pull your filter all the way out of the bottom. But as you can see there, it is starting to filter down in that, and it will clean that all the residue out of the tallow. I had to actually make a little change here because that wasn't wanting to filter through that without falling through. So I went ahead and got my filter back into my funnel, and I'm going to try to use this instead. Get that pulled open there. Just want to make sure you get it down inside your filter so to drain out all the stuff. And then when you're also taking the tallow out of your pan, putting it over here, just be careful not to grab too much of the stuff off the bottom. That'll also help you in the straining process as well. See how it's coming out of there? Hopefully you can see that. We're getting a pretty good, I think we're going to probably be able to get this one jar. I know we won't get any more than one jar, but looking like we're going to get pretty close on this one jar. So, okay, so we got this beef tallow all done. It took all total, front to end, I would say, I would probably allocate about an hour and a half. That way you got time to cook the meat up, the trimmings up. You got time to take your time on the stove and make sure you're not burning the meat and that type of thing throughout the process. So about an hour and a half. And I was going to show you what these trimmings look like, if you can see that. And they're actually pretty good. I mean, I ate some while ago, and it tastes similar to crackling. They're not as hard as crackling are, but they have a really good flavor to them. Put a little salt on them as well. So as you can see, we were able to render a full mason jar. It's still warm, so it's still in that liquid state. And that is absolutely some beautiful tallow right there. So what I'll do with this tallow is let it cool down, and I'll keep it. Like I said, I'll use it when I'm doing briskets. Anytime I go to wrapping my butcher paper, when I get to that point, I always put a little bit of beef tallow down on the butcher paper. Sometimes I'll put a little bit of tallow on top of the brisket itself. And what it does, it allows the brisket to absorb that natural tallow from its own renderings back into the meat, and so it keeps it juicy, tender, and delicious. So we've had a good time doing this. Like I said, hopefully you will try it yourself, and you can find many uses for tallow. If you Google beef tallow, you can find there's tons of different uses for it. You can pretty well fry anything in it. And from what I even understand too, from some of the research I had done in the past, excuse me, McDonald's restaurant up until like 1990 or so, I think actually, from what I read, used to fry their French fries in beef tallow. Thank you once again for watching the video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. You found it a little bit educational, a bit beneficial. If so, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel, Baker's Barbecue. And also jump over to Facebook, like Baker's Barbecue on Facebook, and join Baker's Barbecue for the Backyard Barbecue Enthusiast on Facebook as well. That's the group we have. And if you get opportunity and you want to try some Baker's Barbecue competition rub, do that as well at bakersbbq.net. That's BAKERS BBQ.net. So until the next time I see you guys, happy smoking.